Hi guys, James back again already with another video. And this one, if you already clicked on, you already know. If I was surprised that I was able to get a second list out of this, I'm very surprised to get a third list out of this. So this is the top 10 post-apocalyptic / dystopian films part 3. And I was very surprised that I could get a third list out of this, not because there's a lack of movies, just because of what my normal criteria is, them being hidden gems and just not widely known. Now there are at least 2 on this list that most people, including myself, wouldn't consider hidden gems, but they were films that, while big budgeted and released in theaters, really bombed and got pulled from theaters really quick, and I don't think a lot of people got to see them or experience them. So, I was going to say spoiler for a second, but I don't think I really... No. I'll wait until I need to use it. Okay, so we'll start with number 10. Number 10 is a film called The Girl from Monday. And this is a film by Hal Hartley. He did sort of a trilogy with Thomas J. Ryan, and it was Henry Fool, Fay Grim, which actually did get released in theaters. And the third one, I believe, is called Ned Pistol, but I have not seen it yet. But Henry Fool was good. Fay Grim was pretty funny. He's an independent filmmaker, and he's done several films, most of which you probably haven't heard of. But this would be one. This was from 2005. And it sort of involves an alien who comes to Earth, takes the form of a beautiful woman, and starts to integrate into society. And society is in the near future where sexual encounters are sort of used as economic transactions. And they're regulated, and there's stuff that's against the law, and you have to stay within the rules. And it's mainly, you have Bill Sage playing Jack Bell, and you have, what's her name? Last name is Abrakos. A foreign actress. Anyway, she plays the alien. Bill Sage is one of the just regular American Joe kind of thing. And they interact at some point. I won't get too far into it because the movie's not easy, beyond what I've already done. The movie's not that, the plot isn't that easy to explain, and it's very, I won't say sort of like a Terrence Malick film, but there's a lot of voiceover and odd camera movements. But I thought it was a worthwhile watch. It's The Girl from Monday. Number 9, we have a South Korean film called Natural City. I remember picking this one up. The CD store that used to be in Elgin Mall, I was a regular in there, and in their DVD section, among their DVDs, they had a foreign film section. And they had a lot of great Korean films and Japanese horror films and stuff like that. And that's where I picked up Natural City, but that's also where I picked up the original Old Boy when it first came out. Natural City is sort of in the future. There's cops, and then there's, you can call them they call them dolls, I guess. They're sort of android cyborgs / sex workers. Kind of like the sex bots you see passing by in the Total Recall remake and stuff. But there's a cop who falls in love with one, and she is about to, die in a few days. So they have to deal with their, I guess, relationship, while he has to stick to his job while trying to protect her or save her. I'd say it's a pretty basic plot. It's a love story, but it's got some neat effects in there for it being a futuristic society. That is Natural City. Number 8 is a film called Hardware. Now this might be considered a cult classic. It's a film by Richard Stanley, the guy who did. Let me see. Sorry. He was the original director on the Island of Dr. Moreau, but he's an Australian director. He has done several things that aren't coming to mind at the moment. Well, it says it was his directorial debut, so this was his first film. It stars Dylan McDermott as sort of like a soldier coming home, and he finds the remnants of this old robotic weapon, and he brings it home as a gift to his girlfriend, who's sort of like a tech geek, grease monkey kind of thing, and mechanic, fixes up stuff and stuff like that. But as it turns out, this was a decommissioned robot that once programmed with a target to go after something, it would never stop. And you almost couldn't destroy it at all because it just rebuilds itself. And it also has this weapon, this needle that if it injects you, it breaks down your cellular makeup and stuff like that, and you eventually die and stuff. It could be like on the borderline of, I think, cyberpunk kind of things. But it's a very, very bleak looking future. Everything looks like reddish orange, sort of like when Ryan Gosling goes to Vegas in Blade Runner 2049, that whole orange glow that's around everything. That's what it looks like a lot of the time in this movie when you're outdoors. Let me see. That is Hardware. Number 7, we have a film called The Darkest Minds. This came out 2018, so a few years ago. And this was in theaters, but I think it was out for like maybe a week or two and then gone. It's based on a young adult series of novels. The movie bombed, so they didn't get past the first one. But it's sort of, this virus ravages the planet. And it kills off like 90% of the world's children. And the ones that don't die sort of, not mutate, but gain these powers. And they're graded by colors. And like blue, they can control electricity. Green, they're super intelligent. They list the other ones. Let me see. Green's increase intelligence. Blue, they have telekinetic abilities. Yellow, they can manipulate electricity. Red, they can control fire. They're considered super dangerous. And orange, who can read and manipulate other people's minds. Now, orange are considered to be the most dangerous, and they're to be killed on sight. Red are sort of super dangerous, but they're used as enforcers with the government or the military. And the other ones are all rounded up and put into camps and stuff. Well, the main girl in the movie is an orange, and she accidentally erased her parents' memories of her. And she goes on the run, and she meets up with other kids that are like her but have different abilities. And it's sort of a kids with abilities on the run from the government, meeting up with other kids who have abilities who may or may not be good. I thought it was an impressive movie, and I only saw it the one time in the theater, but it always stuck out in my mind that I wanted to revisit it. And another one where I wish it had continued. It doesn't exactly leave you on a cliffhanger where, like Aragon and stuff, where they leave you with a dun-dun-dun kind of cliffhanger. When's the next movie coming? Well, this bombed, so you're not getting another one. They kind of end the movie where it could continue or it couldn't. It's not, you're not left hanging, is what I mean to say. So that is The Darkest Minds. Number 6 is a film called Stakeland 2, or The Stakelander, or Stakeland 2, the Stakelander. This is a sequel to Stakeland, the indie vampire post-apocalyptic film. It was on, I believe, my first top 10 vampire films list. Either that or my first top 10 post-apocalyptic films. You'd have to look. Watch them again. I probably will. And it's a sequel to that. And you have the kid, the younger brother from Gossip Girl. The kid, his name is Martin. And at the end of the first one, he had settled down with a girl he met, and his mentor, known as Mister, a legendary vampire hunter, had gone off on his own. Excuse me. Well, at the outset of this film, Martin's, I guess, wife and the child, I think she had, his wife and daughter are killed by vampires, and so he sets off to find Mister again. Now you have the antagonist group from the first one, the Brotherhood, are back in this film, as well as another horde of vampires led by this bald, scarred woman who's the leader of these vampires, who's trying to get to Mister. And it's cool because Martin tracks down Mister. Well, he's captured and forced to fight forced by these cannibals to fight in this fighting ring, and he ends up going against their champion, who turns out to be Mister. Now, this you find out in the trailer. That's not a surprise. So he has to get through to Mister, and they have to get the hell out of there. And that's the basic setup for the film. It's going to be Mister and Martin again, teaming up again to go against the Brotherhood and these vampires and this new leader they have, who has encountered Mister before. So, there's a little tease for you. Stakeland 2. A good follow-up to Jim Mickles' film. This one was directed by Dan Burke and Robert Olson. All right, number 5, we have another sequel. This is Monsters, Dark Continent. Monsters was an indie film. I may have talked about it on my one of my lists, either Post-Apocalyptic Part 1 or Top 10 Films You've Likely Never Heard Of, or my top 25, 25 of the decade, I can't remember. I know it was on one of those. Well, this is the sequel to it. In the first one, it was a photographer going down through Mexico into the quarantine zone to rescue a media magnate's daughter who was down there. And years ago, asteroids crashed on Earth, releasing these aliens that started to infect the southern U.S., but Mexico, and into the southern U.S., and they quarantined it off. You see on the map, it's the quarantine zone. It's like the bottom half of the U.S. and Mexico. He gets hurt. They get back into the States, and their fate is sort of left up in the air. Well, with Monsters Dark Continent, the two stars didn't come back for the movie. They came back to produce this one. This movie is basically a few years down the road, and the monsters are all throughout the U.S., and this one follows a platoon of, I think it's Marines? Is it Marines? U.S. Army soldiers whose job is it to hunt down and kill all these alien monsters that are running rampant all over the desert and country, I suppose. And it's just focusing on these guys and their struggle against the aliens. So another very impressive follow-up. This one not done by Gareth Edwards, but who did this one? Tom Green, not the comedian. And yeah, the effects, they probably had a bigger budget for this one because Gareth Edwards did monsters for a very low budget and was very impressive looking. This one is still impressive looking, but I think they did it with a lot more money. Anyway, not too many recognizable stars, but still a great movie nonetheless. It's Monsters Dark Continent. All right, number 4, yet another sequel. This is Death Race 2. Now, I've never seen the original Death Race or Death Race 2000 or Death Race 3000 or whatever, but I was a fan of the Jason Statham-led remake of Death Race, where he gets set up, goes to prison, and is forced to compete as Frankenstein, because Frankenstein was this legendary driver, had a mask and cool car, and they race around the track grabbing weapons and basically trying to kill each other to see who's left, and people around the world bet on it and stuff. Well, this movie goes back to before Frankenstein, I believe before Frankenstein existed, and it's a prequel, and stars Luke Goss, the villain from Jared Nomak from Blade 2, and from several other movies. Luke Goss is a criminal who's sent to prison, and the prison at the time, the prisoners are forced to basically fight gladiator fights, just fight hand to hand and weapons and stuff like that. That evolves into what you'd now known as in the original movie Death Race. It evolves into the battling with cars and vehicles around, and some of the actors from Death Race appear in this prequel. And okay, spoiler. This one, there was a part 3, but to this Death Race 3 Inferno, another sequel to this, but still a prequel to the original. But it basically messed up and retconned stuff that happened in this one. In this one, towards the end, the main star gets injured and burned horribly, and they put him under a mask and call him Frankenstein, and he continues to race. Whereas in the beginning of Death Race, Frankenstein was already one of the champions, and he ends up dying, and they force Jason Statham to become Frankenstein. Well, in this one, he becomes Frankenstein at the end of the movie. It's like, oh, cool, this is how Frankenstein came to be. Had the cool mask on and stuff like that. Or you get in Death Race 3, the movie continues, he gets reconstructive surgery so he looks just like he was, and then they trick the corrupt warden into taking his place, and they mess up his face, and he becomes Frankenstein against his will. It really messed up the plot line, and I was not a big fan of it. I like leaving it at Death Race 2, lead into Death Race, because even in Death Race 2, towards the end, they showed a picture of the soon-to-be warden, who she was the warden in the original Death Race, and I can't remember her name. She was John Travolta's wife in Face Off. She's been in a ton of movies. I can't remember her name at the moment. And you've seen the original Death Race with Jason Statham. You know who I'm talking about. She's the warden running everything. Well, they show her picture. It's like, oh, cool, that's the lead into the next movie. Anyway, sorry. Can't remember her name, but yes, that is Death Race 2. Number 3, we have another considered cult classic, but not necessarily widely known, as a lot of cult classics aren't. This is Tank Girl. This is an awesome post-apocalyptic movie starring Lori Petty. You've got Ice-T in there, Malcolm McDowell, Jeff Kober. A very early Naomi Watts film performance. I don't know if it's her acting debut, but she is in there. I believe she plays a character named Jet. She basically becomes Jet Girl. She becomes the the best friend of Lori Petty's tank girl character, and it's sort of surviving in the desert, in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, fighting against, I think there's a evil corporation called Water and Power, led by Malcolm McDowell. And you've got these rippers that are sort of like these dog kangaroo kind of hybrids that live underneath the desert, that become friends with Jet Girl and Tank Girl. And it is super weird, but it's a very cool movie, and it's got an awesome soundtrack. I have the soundtrack, and it's great. So that is Tank Girl. Number 2, these top 2 are ones that were pretty big budget movies, big releases, but bombed and nobody watched them. So I put them on this list because I think they deserve recognition. Number 2, right here, we have Reminiscence. This is from just this past year in 2021, a Hugh Jackman film. And what drew me to it was not just the cast or the trailer, it was because it was the directorial debut of Lisa Joy, one of the co-creators of Westworld, one of my all-time favorite shows. And it's sort of, if you listen to the most recent Movie Madhouse podcast episode where we did our top 10 of the year, Reminiscence was on there and I talked about it. And it's sort of Hugh Jackman and Tandy Newton run this business where they can explore a person's memories, basically put them in this machine, and they ask them to walk them through these certain memories, and they basically, it's like you're watching a movie of a memory you had, and they can go in, not so much interact, but basically go up and, like you're walking right into a movie and experience everything that's going on around you as you try to determine what they need to find or find out. And the setup of this one was Rebecca Ferguson walks in and says she lost her keys. And that kicks off everything. So, and she becomes sort of, not so much a femme fatale, but she becomes the love interest for Hugh Jackman, and then she disappears. And that was the premise of the trailer. They fall in love and she disappears, and like, people don't just vanish. So he's trying to find her. You've also got Cliff Curtis in there as a henchman, a hitman. Daniel Wu is in there. And I thought it was just super impressive. Super impressive directorial debut. It was just a great movie. It's also on the post-apocalyptic side because something has happened to the climate where the waters have risen. They live in Miami. The waters have risen. Some people live in houses on stilts and stuff like that. But it's also super hot during the day. So almost everyone who has jobs works at night because it's too hot to go out in public during the day. So that is the premise for Reminiscence. And number 1 from a few years ago, 2018, is Mortal Engines. This movie is amazing. It got pulled after like a week and a half, and they gave us back something else to fill the spot at the theater. At some point, major countries around the world all had this super powerful purple lasered weapon or whatever, and they basically just destroyed each other, destroyed everything. And years on, all the lands have been ravaged, and the countries have basically become moving cities. So you have Great Britain is this massive city on wheels. There's a whole functioning city that moves around, but they stop, gather supplies, but they also will track down and consume or eat other cities, like smaller cities on this little truck or on little wheels or whatever. And they'll like shoot harpoons and basically open up these doors and bring it inside, close the doors, and like all the people in there, you can have jobs here, toss all your stuff here into this furnace or whatever and divvy up all the rest, and your new life awaits you or whatever. And they basically just, instead of taking over a land, you took over this moving city. And the lead girl is, where is it? The lead girl, Hester, she's going after she's going after basically not the leader, but one of the head guys of the Great Britain city, played by Hugo Weaving, and because he killed her mother years ago, and so she's coming after him. But he's also being protected by this one kid who works in the city and wants to be approved of and wants to move his way up in the world, and doesn't understand why this crazy girl is trying to kill his boss. But they both end up being ejected from this city and are on the run across the wasteland and stuff, meeting up with other futuristic communities and trying to get back onto the moving city because he's basically trying to rebuild that legendary weapon so that he can take down. There's this one community that has this big wall, and they live behind it, and they have all these resources and stuff, and they want them. So that's the main bad guy's main goal, and then the good guys are trying to take down the bad guy. So not too complicated of a story, but visually stunning. I believe it was produced by Philippa Boyens and Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh, and Weta, Peter Jackson's visual effects company, did the visual effects, and boy did they shell out the money for this one. Unfortunately it didn't make any, so couldn't continue. But it was another one where it could continue if they wanted to, but you weren't really left hanging. So okay, that is all for this list. Kind of ran through that one pretty quick, but I wanted to get it out, and I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I apologize for not knowing some of the actors' names. I usually, at the drop of a hat, I know them, but when you put yourself on the spot, all of a sudden your mind goes blank sometimes. I don't like doing a script. I like it to be spontaneous and organic. Whereas I don't want to look like I'm reading something. It's just me. Works well for plenty of other people. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, suggestions, all are welcome. And I will see you on the next one. Toodles.